Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight we will have guest Dona Masi. She's the author of The Taken. Yes, not The Taken, not Taken. You know, that's one of my favorite miniseries, The Taking. It is about alien abduction. It is a fictional story, but she's based this upon her research and some of her own experiences. And we're going to talk about alien abduction, UFOs, the whole phenomenon in itself. Our guest Dona Masi tonight, author of The Taking. And of course, we didn't have a show last week, and if you can hear, my voice isn't still not 100%. I've had just bad sinus infection and drainage, and so I had a store meeting last Sunday. I apologize. I just had no voice, I would think, afterwards, so I rescheduled that guest. But I didn't want to miss this show, and I didn't want to be gone for 2 weeks, so we're back. We might have a shorter show tonight because I don't know how long my voice is going to go. But it's not about me talking, it's about our guest tonight, Dona, so we'll have her, and we will open up the phone lines later in the show to call in for some questions later in the show. We got a lot to get to, so let's go ahead and get rolling on into it. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight's guest, Dona Masi, will be joining us after the World Wide Web of Weird, after our first commercial break. But joining me, as always, is my beautiful co-host, Jamie D. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
Doing well, thank you. I'm glad to be back.
I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving.
I did. I hope you did, too.
I did, except for the horrible sinus. Because, you know, I'm a man. I got to cry about being sick. You know, I'm man sickness. You know how it is. We're just big babies. And both my boys, they've had just the congestion and everything. It's been awful. It's something in the air. It's the chemtrails. I don't know. All the way from St. Augustine, Florida, where the skies are hopefully clearer than the chemtrails here in Indiana. It's Rob Autry. How you doing?
Well, it's like 43 here, so I'm not doing the best.
Well, it's not that much warmer than it is here.
I know. It's
43 down there?
Yeah.
Wow.
Ridiculous.
It makes me feel a little better. It's cold here. It's 30s. It's cold. It's cold. But enough complaining about sinus congestion and the weather. You're not here to hear me whine about my man sickness. No, you're not. We got a lot to get to in the World Wide Web of Weird, so let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web, we do have a lot of UFO stuff, but we're going to start off with a couple stories not UFO related, but there's plenty. We're going to talk about the Manchester thing. Yes, if you're familiar with that. There's so much happening with the UFOs right now. Seems to be an uptick, but I have some squashing to do on some of these supposed UFO things. But the first couple stories, we're going to start off with one of my favorite, not paranormal, but just the decline of humanized civilization I predicted, is that the housing market's gotten so bad that we're going to see some inventive ways of people finding new ways to make their own little homes, their own little nest eggs, maybe inside your crawl space. For those listening on the Paranormal Soup radio network, we are on Talkstream Live's Paranormal Radio app. We are a webcast streaming out live to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. But if you want to listen, I'll narrate as best as possible. It's not so great tonight because my throat is already killing me. So bear with the disgusting noises. All right, so I've said this on the show last time we had one of these stories, is that we're going to see more of this, more inventive ways, because, especially here, this one in California, the housing market is awful. I mean, it's awful here in Indiana, but I can't imagine California housing prices means more homelessness, and people find inventive ways, and I've always been fascinated with this, of finding places in shelter. You've seen the mole people in New York doing that, where they literally making homes in the subway tunnels and stuff. I've watched the whole documentaries, totally fascinated by it, and sad, and should have compassion for people that are having to do this. So this is not a way to make fun of somebody trying to do this. The person probably does have some, problems. Drugs are bad. Or other things, I'm sure. But so if I'm not explaining mysteries, I got the shorter version of this article. Woman who heard weird noises had naked man living under her house. In an unbelievably unnerving story out of Los Angeles, a 93-year-old woman who lived in the city El Sereno neighborhood had been left perplexed by unexplained sounds that could be heard underneath her house during the early hours of the morning. For a time, she and her family believed that the sounds were those of a dog or some sort of wild animal that had either been passing through or had taken up residence in the crawl space underneath. Themes came to a head when, upon hearing a particularly loud and obvious noise under the house, they decided to call the police and ask them to investigate who or what was responsible. Good idea. Don't go look yourself, right? Get the police, make them do it, right? It was usually late, and thank God they did. It was usually late at night, and we just chucked it off to animals being under the house. The woman's son-in-law, Ricardo Silvia, told reporters at NBC Los Angeles. The noises were kind of like a knocking. It was kind of like as my wife was walking, they were kind of knocking back from under the house. So she says, something's wrong. When police arrived on the scene, however, nobody could have expected what they would find. A naked man who had seemingly been living beneath the house for quite some time. Things went from bad to worse when that man refused to leave, eventually forcing police officers to use their tear gas to remove him from the property. It turned out that the culprit was a 27-year-old who had been living there for 6 months.
Why was he naked?
Probably because he went to bed, man. He likes to sleep nude.
Okay.
He likes to sleep nude.
Free balling it. I get it.
Pretty brave.
It probably is so gross down there now.
Yeah.
Because what else would he have had to do?
Yeah, it's probably pretty gross. Oh, poor. And thank God they were like, let's call the police and have them check it out. Because imagine if they went to check it out. They had to tear gas this guy to get him out finally.
What would you do? You're crawling out. The worst
crawl space is like that big. It's like that big of an entry. It's like that big, So this guy was crawling in there for 6 months in and out. And, this lady probably went to bed early. Yeah. Scary stuff. People are more scary than the paranormal. Moving on, though. We spent way too much time on that one. All right, let's move on. All right, next up we got security camera films ghostly figure disturbing dogs. I've seen a lot of people sharing this online. Again, how do you know if this is paranormal or just not a person, oddly enough, walking in the middle of the night in a white gown? I mean, I don't know. Eerie piece of security footage from Mexico shows the moment a pair of dogs are disturbed by a ghostly figure, which some have linked to the legendary La Llorona. Walking down the road, the spooky scene reportedly unfolded around 1:30 a.m. on November 7th at an unidentified location within the country. The creepy video begins with two dogs howling furiously at something out of view. The focus of their attention soon comes to a focus in the form of a white figure that can be seen slowly walking across the road. Although the canine witnesses continue to bark at the stranger, wildly mysterious individual does not react, steadily moves along until it exits the area covered by the cameras. Go ahead and play the paranormal La Llorona being footage. I don't know. I mean, it could just be a person. How do we know? They just are, maybe they're sleepwalking. Or this is La Llorona.
That looks like a person's walk.
Yeah, it could be, La Llorona.
Like
Does she not walk like a person?
Mid to fast pace.
I'm just saying, these things go viral. It's kind of creepy. Like, if you were the guy who had the security cam footage and you didn't think anybody would be out in the middle of nowhere, because it sounds like this is out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night at 1:30 a.m., walking past your property, you might be like, that's a bit odd.
We were camping before, and I was wearing like this all white like skirt thing and running through the forest, and they're like taking pictures of me, and it just looked really, really creepy.
Sounds
So
like a Diddy party,
something
but
like that,
1,000 bottles of baby oil.
they would think like, "What's that? That's kind of
Sorry.
creepy."
Sorry. It's bad when you have 9-year-olds making Diddy references. I'm like, what? I'm not joking. Like, seriously, you guys don't even know what that's about. Shut your mouth. Like, seriously, the kids are talking about it at school. P. Diddy, these kids are impressionable. They looked up to you. No, I'm serious. These kids are talking about it. I'm like, how do they know about this stuff? God. All right, moving on. Maybe it's because they got teachers that are, I don't know, talking about it. Or like this teacher. Michigan, a substitute teacher is fired after using Ouija board in class.
Oh, man.
How many of these stories are we going to have? Cautionary tales to teachers is maybe you don't want to use a Ouija board in class. You're always fired. A stable of horror movies, paranormal investigations, and mediumship sessions. The Ouija board is typically blah, blah, blah. We know this. While many dismiss them as a supernatural claptrap, others remain convinced that they are the real deal. Let's move on. When parents learned that a substitute teacher had brought a Ouija board during a class at a Freeman Elementary School in Flint, Michigan recently, therefore, many were understandably concerned about any potential malign influences that the board might have had. At the meeting, the Board of Education Superintendent Kevin Jones stated that the Ouija board were definitely not part of the curriculum. And the teacher in question, who has not been named, ended up being fired from their job. Sounds like it was a substitute. It's not something we condone as it pertains to speaking about those types of things in a way that would instill fear or speak away from the curriculum, Jones said. We have rectified the situation, and we have determined that we would not have that particular third-party staff member in the district, so we can ensure the safety and well-being of Scott. What goes through these people's minds? You don't think? I mean, these kids don't go home like, "Hey, Mom, guess what we did in class today?" They're not going to say something. I don't know. But I mean, this is probably 5th or 6th teacher fired story we've had over the 9 years from Ouija board. I don't know.
Hey, Mom, we summoned demons in class today.
Yeah. You might be the cool teacher for the day. You might be the cool teacher for the day. But that's your last day, probably. I'm just saying. All right. On to UFO stuff, because we got a lot. And I want to get caught up. So first off is Capitol Hill sighting everybody's talking about. Because seeing a lot of people talking about this, sharing it. I got a couple photos for this. So this is the first one. There's a video too, Rob. The main thing first shown is this Capitol footage shared. It was by Scott C1. Enhanced the original photo. Definitely has real objects. Mysterious lights over Capitol Hill cause UFO panic. It's already happened. He's a former Air Force, I believe it was. I'm not going to read the whole article or anything. And I get that. Now, did he see these with his eyes? This is my question. Because this goes back to the 1952 photo of the lights. I know people saw stuff with their eyes.
Photo?
This is a photo. We have a video, too. That's
like
different.
drones.
But listen. Hold on. But 1952, they had a similar photo. And I don't know if I have that as photo C in here or photo B. Go to the next photo. And we'll look at the video, too, but I have my questions on the video. All right, so here's a different angle. Somebody getting the actual lens flare from the same spot in the Capitol building. Now, you notice it's up above that. You don't see the lights down below, but you notice there's 4 lights, and then you see the 4 lights up there. Did he see it with his eyes? That's my question. Or did you see it through the camera lens? Because if you saw it through the camera lens only, it's lens flare like that. It's a classic example. It's a 1952 case. Plenty of people had witnessed UFOs during the Capitol over several days. But the classic photo that's shown for it has been widely debunked. It should be another one in there to show that as an example. We'll keep going. That one. And it's hard to see in here, but the one on the left is the classic 1952 example, and their lights are down below. Here's another thing example showing you how it refracts See the lights down below or same lights behind. It's a classic example. Now, I think people in 1952 saw UFOs during those times, but this photo went around as a classic example of it, and it's actually been debunked a long, long time ago. And this is similar. This is very similar to what I'm seeing. Now, there's a video. Go to the video. So then there's also this video going around with it. There's a photo, and there's talking about this video. Now, I don't know Washington, D.C. air traffic. Maybe these people, residentials, should know what the D.C. air traffic is if they recognize this as not normal as planes. But could this be planes? I don't know. I mean, there's just lights in the sky. Could this be planes? I don't know. It's a very short video. You don't see a lot. It's going to pan over a little bit more smoke.
Drones flying around there.
Well, we're going to get to that. Well, they're talking about that in Europe, and there are 3 military bases in Europe right now. We're going to get to that here in a sec. This is weird the way they're all lined up. I don't know. There's that light appears. Could this be planes? I don't know. Or is this the actual UFO thing going on, or is it CGI? I know the photos everybody's talking about.
Try to recreate the old photo.
The other photo, in a sense, I don't know. The first photo is from the White House from 1952. That one's from the Capitol building. And like I said, to me, that looks like clear lens refraction. This, I don't know. Could this be planes? Somebody would have to know that lives there. Is this like normal scene over DC? You know, it seems like, you know, there's air traffic control. You can't fly over DC, certain areas. So the video is interesting. It could possibly be something that's happening near the Capitol. You notice, though, there's nothing over the Capitol. When she goes over to the Capitol area, it's totally dead air. You know, there's nothing going there because you can't fly over the Capitol. Right? Should be like restricted air zone. This could be off in the distance. Is that airplanes or is that UFOs? And it's weird. I don't know. But I just know the photo. That's very classic example of the lens flare phenomenon from like 1952. And a lot of UFO researchers way better than me pointed that out right away with the Capitol story. Right away. So, all right, let's move on, because the Capitol one's very popular. I get it, and maybe people have seen stuff over the Capitol with their own eyes. That things are moving. There's definitely UFO uptick. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing this stuff. Now, there's one I didn't even include tonight that happened right before the show that everybody's talking about is the Arizona one, with Ashley Rose supposedly posted this video. Looks like a triangle UFO. There's a good researcher, I can't think of his name right now, that did the landscape, the daytime, similar location, shows you that it's most likely the hill line and not in the air. So if you see that triangle UFO, it's mostly ATVs on a hill line. There's a lot of UFO videos coming out, man. There's a ton of stuff right now.
3 I had last week that I just didn't even have time to read through or use.
Right. I got a ton I've saved. I couldn't do them all on this show, and that's the thing. So I'm trying to cover some of the stories and some of the ones I can debunk, some of the ones I can't that are pretty interesting. But the big story, too, on to the next one, is mystery drones keep buzzing U.S. Air Force bases in the U.K. Mystery began back in November 20th when a number of unidentified drones were spotted over RAF Lakenheath and RAF Midland Hall in Suffolk, I can never say it right, as well as over RAF Feltwell in Norfolk. Ugh, cannot talk. Series of incursions were reported in November 22nd, and then on the 25th, all these bases are leased by the U.S. Air Force. There has been no impact to residents or infrastructure, and they have not been identified as hostile, said a spokesperson of the U.S. Air Force. However, they are still continuously being monitored to ensure the safety and security of the installation. It is unclear how many drones are involved, who is operating them, and why they are doing it. Well, if it is an alien, then it is a security threat no matter what, alien or not, because if this is Russia or this is China and there's a planning an attack, the places they want to take out are those 3 military bases in Europe, big ones. Now, we've talked about all the drone sightings around nuclear bases, nuclear power plants. A lot of that's an uptick. But are these drones, or or are these alien? I don't know. It could be alien too, because why? We are in a nuclear threat age now. We are in an age, things are getting ramped up real bad, real quick. You got Russia's changed their rules of engagement for using nuclear strike first. You know, I think the aliens pay attention to these things. I really do. And I have been calling it, saying that we're going to have an uptick in UFOs. The more this war gets ramped up, I think we're in a bigger uptick in UFOs. And look, we have the Capitol story. Maybe. That's what's going on with these bases, or it's military. I mean, it's damn straight they are trying. You think they should be pretty damn concerned about this if they're scoping out our military bases.
Last year, lawmakers concerned about Chinese drones and restricted spaces around the Capitol, and that was this time 2022.
Yeah. Yeah, well, things have ramped up. And first strike is we want to strike your military bases first in Europe, especially if they're doing it's going to be a whole war in Europe. That's the concern right now. All right. On to more, like I said, sightings, and some that I find really interesting. This one, so we're going to talk about a couple different orb instances. This one, Unexplained Mysteries, Blue Orb, inadvertently filmed by a news chopper over New York City. Sometimes UFOs can show up the most unexpected of times, and a recent example, which was captured on camera high over the New York City skyline, is such a case. Filmed from a news chopper, the object, a bluish sphere, seemed to come out of nowhere and quickly sped off the side of the frame during a Fox 5 news report aired on Monday. Clear weather made the object quite easily to see, although it remains unclear what it actually is. It appears its appearance wasn't mentioned on the report itself at the time, but was instead later picked up by other news outlets such as New York Post, which featured a clip on the YouTube channel. Go ahead and play it really quick, just once, so I don't get flagged by them. But I wanted people to see it because it's going to be interesting when we get to the last article tonight. This thing is, you see the bluishness of it when you really zoom in and slow it down. And then the helicopter's kind of hovering there, so it's not the helicopter, I think, flying past it. It seems like it takes a curve and goes right past. You see the blue kind of glow?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So what is that? I don't know. That's pretty interesting. It wouldn't seem like it might be very big. No explanation from that. The path of the object saw it zoom in over the Hudson River and past lower Manhattan. Some speculated it could have been some sort of drone, while others suggested it might have been even something as trivial as a reflection of sunlight on the lens and glass panel. Could it be? It looks like it curves. I mean, it seems like it's moving. I don't think maybe it's an illusion of the chopper moving, but I don't know. It looks like something coming into flight. Weird. All right, let's move on because we got a lot to get to. The last one. All right, so that one, I wanted to get that done to compare to this last story that is blowing up on the UFO rounds right now. I've noticed a number of major UFO site or paranormal sites have kind of stayed away from it so far, but they're going to cover it, I'm sure, eventually. But on the internet, this thing's blowing up. There's whole threads people talking about this thing right now. Is the Manchester UFO or UAP sighted at Manchester Airport sparked speculation. Round blue object was spotted at Manchester Airport this week, sparking speculation about its unidentified airplane. This is the first article I could find on it. Now, there's a lot I could read on. It was posted by this one first, and terrific stuff. I want to find the original poster of this. I'm trying to find the name of it. Posted this stuff, supposedly worked as a pilot, and put it under like a anonymous name, and posted it, and then removed the profile and took it all down. But people already screen captured it and already got the video and that. Because there's a video, supposedly, of this thing flying off. So supposedly this thing came down, landed at Manchester Airport, and flew off. Now, they said recent. We don't have any provenance on this. The guy took it down. If this happened, okay, this would shut down an airport, like the O'Hare UFO incident. It would shut down an airport for just a little while at least. Some people are speculating, they're saying this actually happened in June of this year. And that June 23rd, there was a supposed power outage at the Manchester airport, and they shut it down. So that's some of the speculation going on. You know, why did this person post it and then take their whole profile down and take it all down right away? Were they silenced? You know, if there's somebody looking for clicks, they're not getting any credit for it because it's all over the internet and they're not posting it. So what's the point either? All right, we got much more to look through here, Rob. If you want to keep clicking through, there's a video. So this is some of the zoom in. All right, this is an interesting one. Somebody took an AI recreation of this and they tried to enhance it to make it look and see like what the shape of this thing is zoomed in and using some AI. And you get some interesting shapes to this. Some people say it's a balloon. Some people think it's like car size, but I'm getting different arguments over this actual size. It could be much smaller. It could be like 18 inches, which would be balloon size. But this thing has some like structural elements to it. When you look at it, you see how they recreate it, because there does seem to be like these like three like horns that come over the side top of it. For people listening on the radio, it's basically a big blue ball, but there's some structural things to it. When you know, it gets very grainy when you zoom in. Rob, Jamie, have you seen this one yet?
I haven't seen this one yet.
So.
I feel like it's being buried on the internet so far, but it's not. Like, there's plenty of people talking about it, but it's like the main sites where you get a lot of these stories have not really got into it yet, which is curious. Like I said, Providence is a big one. You know, person posted it and then took it down. Did this happen at the Manchester airport? People identified it as the Manchester airport in the video. Here's the video. Now, obviously, he said he didn't record until, I guess the posted story is he didn't record until this scene started taking off, and he only got the last tail end of it as it went up in the air. And it's a very short video. Barely.
It would be a natural thing for someone to do. Like when you catch
it does.
Already.
Right. Like they're shocked. They're, what am I seeing? And then like, oh my God, get my phone. And this thing's taking off. Oh my God, get my phone. That does seem like a real experience, right?
Ready to go, you know,
right.
like, okay,
I mean, you're going to be in shock. You're a pilot in that plane right now, and you're seeing this probably much clearer than we are with your eyes, making out the detail, and going, "That's not right. That ain't normal." And you're a little shocked. And this thing probably only lasted a few minutes there, if that. And this guy finally got the gumption to pull out the phone and film it. Maybe then he decided, I'm going to post this under an anonymous name. And somebody called him and goes, "You're not anonymous. We know who you are. Don't take it down." And he took it down.
Like one of your worst nightmares, I'm hearing more and more people seeing UFO type things out of their windows on a plane.
You can't.
Like,
Yeah, well, this is on the tarmac. Do you think this guy got in the air that day? Would you? I wouldn't. I wouldn't. That's it for the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight's guest is Dona Masi. She's the author of The Taking. We are going to be talking aliens, abduction, that whole great deal. You know, the great mysterious beyond of aliens. Yes, all that with Dona Masi, author of The Taking, which is a fictional story, but she has her own personal experiences and research. We're going to talk about that a lot tonight. And we will take your phone calls later in the show. Might be a shorter show tonight. We'll see how long my voice can take it. But we're going to listen more to our guest than me. But our guest, Dona Masi, author of The Taking. After this short commercial break, we'll be right back.
You were brought here for one purpose, necromancy.
A ceremony dating back to the pre-Christian era. It's the art of reviving the dead. It requires involvement with evil spirits by the person performing the act.
The devil god brings life to the dead.
No, please. No, please.
And death to the living. Necromancy. Starring Orson Welles and Pamela Franklin. From Cinerama releasing. In color, rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDeath.net.
He is conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Hello, I am Fernando Martinez. I think by now you know I am an emotional kind of guy. People stop me in the street and say, Fernando, what the hell is wrong with me? Silk shirt, hairy chest, enough aftershave to drown a household pet, but I still cannot get a woman. I tell them you are an ignorant fool. Without a symbol of power and fertility around your neck, what kind of woman is going to respect you? That is why I have teamed up with Medallion Man, the shop for medallion needs. Medallion Man caters to all levels of masculinity. For the strong, silent type, a medallion the size of a hubcap will say everything that needs to be said. Even singing medallions for the Casanova who knows music is the food of love. Model trains, dollhouses, diapers, whatever your interest, we've got the medallion for you. Don't forget, every woman knows if you can't support a medallion, you can't support a family.
This is the sound of a space clock aboard a U.S. satellite 180 miles above the Earth. No one winds up this timepiece. It's powered by a tiny battery, a battery that delivers power for years without replacement. Now the same type of battery, the Duracell battery, can bring new reliability and long life to your battery-operated equipment. Radios, cameras, toys, all run far longer. Duracell batteries, the long-distance power cells, outlast any ordinary battery. The same type of battery that keeps space clocks running for years can bring long life to anything powered by batteries. Dura, as in durable. Cell, as in power cell. The Duracell battery, made by Mallory.
Switch to DCS ranging.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe, 5 by 5.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is Dona Masi. Dona Masi is a writer and editor whose short fiction and articles are used in reading and writing assessments throughout the United States. Her articles about the arts, the environment, current affairs have appeared in Foster's Daily Democrat, Seacoast Newspapers, and Portsmouth Press. She's also a playwright, and 2 of her plays were performed in the Provincetown Theater Company. Her debut novel, The Taking, was inspired by her interest in UFO folklore and reports of alien encounters. With a bachelor's in liberal studies from Vermont College, she's earned an MA in liberal studies from the University of New Hampshire. She lives with her husband in Dover, New Hampshire. I love New Hampshire. I haven't visited a lot of states on my own by myself. That was the one. And I wanted to stay. You know, it was such a beautiful state. And the Benny Barney Hill. I drove that route. We'll talk about that tonight. Never get to talk about that very often. We got a lot to get to in this show with our guest tonight, Dona Masi. We will open up the phone lines later in the show if you want to call in. But let's go ahead and get to our guest. Dona, it is an honor to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Now, I just started. Everybody knows I'm a retail manager, so it's been a busy week for me, and I have not been feeling so hot. But I just started your novel, but I'm interested to read further into it. It is fiction, but we're going to talk about a lot tonight. Is some of your own experience and research that led to the writing of The Taken about alien abduction. I have to start off right away to say, and I told you before the show, I really love that there one character's name is Vera, the daughter in the story, because that was my grandmother's name. Find out that's your grandmother's name.
Yeah.
It's making a comeback. Name. It's making a comeback. I was telling you, I was at my son's grade school, and we saw, I think there was 2 Veras there. I'm like, wow, I never thought that name would make a comeback. When I was a kid, I didn't know anybody else with my grandmother's name, Vera. But now it seems to be much more common, so I'm happy to see that in the book. I'm definitely interested in further reading it. For you, what started this interest in UFOs, aliens, abduction, the whole shebang?
Mm-hmm. I've always been interested throughout my entire life, and I guess there are some concrete reasons why. Some of it is inexplicable. It's almost as if I've been interested in it since I was a small child. My mom was interested. We used to talk about it a lot. And New Hampshire has kind of a storied history with UFO experiences, UFO encounters, UFO
Your
reports.
did your mom have experiences?
Not that she ever shared, so I don't think so, but she just really gravitated toward the topic. Now, she was an open-minded kind of person,
Yeah.
and she always believed that, we came from the stars, and so it was something she was definitely believed was quite a strong possibility that there's life in other worlds and that extraterrestrials could be visiting our planet. And she had she had a good imagination. But anyway, we used to talk about it. Sometimes we used to joke about, how we'd love to be chasing a UFO in our car. But the adventure of it, we probably would have been scared at the same time.
You're not going to have a good time.
Yeah.
Generally, from
But
most
that
reported things.
adrenaline rush.
Right? I mean, right. Benny, we'll talk about Betty and Barney Hill tonight since you're in New Hampshire. And is that New Hampshire? Whenever you're from New Hampshire? Because that's definitely your home turf. But, they didn't have a good time. Like the people that got, what was it, the grandparent, the mom, the grandkid, and the aunt, whatever, got fried by the UFO above them in Texas, I think that was, or where was that? A lot of people don't have good times. Fire in the sky, But you know what? Well, I'm with you. I would have chased down a UFO too in a car, and I probably still will unless my wife's in the car, and then it isn't happening.
Well, the reason I kind of chuckled is because I remember after the Benny and Barney Hill had
I know, I'm slipping on it too.
Betty used to go out and look for UFOs in her car, and sometimes she said that she spotted them and that they would often chase them and follow them around. And there was like this cat and mouse game, and she would pile her sister and her niece and her nephew and some of their friends into the car, and they'd go out at night and look for UFOs. Barney didn't want any part of it. He would just stay in the house and watch television, but they all went out and
you really can't blame them if you look back at those two's experience. He was terrified. I think he was every account of his from the regressions to therapies, he was terrified.
Mm-hmm.
But she had like a communication with him to the point where they're showing her star maps and telling him where she's from. Like she's having conversations. With them, particularly the Zeta Reticuli, things that now are the folklore of UFO legend in this field, naming a star system they didn't actually have evidence of yet, pre-hand. That's pretty incredible. I've had some guests on about Benny and Barney Hill. I guess we get into it. That did find, and we were talking about this, I think, a couple weeks ago. There's some weird things with that case. There's some little bit of pre-military involvement before their abduction. Like there's some people that they were encountered with that would later be in the story. I'm trying to think of the names, Colonel, that are later involved in basically some kind of like embedding into their abduction experience. Like they knew beforehand they'd be abducted and afterhand. Some people think that it was like, were they part of like a black op? Was it really aliens? I've had people on that side. There's some weird things, evidence they point to. Benny and Barney Hill, I think they were honest in what they experienced in their family. And I understand, too, is the niece has had her own experiences.
Yes, I actually had a conversation with Kathleen Martin, Betty's niece. She is from New Hampshire. Yeah, she was fascinating. She told me a lot of details about the case.
Yeah.
But she didn't mention anything about this being a premeditated, pre-op, black op.
They wouldn't know. They wouldn't know. The sense is they were taken. One of the theories is that they were taken by some military, maybe even a military cooperation with aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Is what the wonder is. Where they, was this because the idea is that we made a treaty.
Yeah.
Like Eisenhower made a treaty or whatever. It's hard for me. I like Dwight Eisenhower. It's hard for me to believe that he would make a treaty to allow humans to be taken. I think Laura Eisenhower's great-granddaughter has spoken out and says no, right? If I remember right, her belief he never made that deal. But I don't think there was a deal to be. If they're going to take people, they're going to take people. I don't think there's any deal to be made. I don't think. But anyways, is that some idea that we like it or not, they're taking people and the U.S. government's involved in some way?
Well,
and they were definitely afterwards.
Those,
definitely watched.
I've definitely heard those stories about the U.S. military being in league with aliens and agreeing to have us taken in exchange for, maybe not invading the earth or something to that extent.
Or the one theory is like in exchange for UFO or alien technology. And I can see definitely a lot of greedy people within our Pentagon, DOD, and I'm going, yes, let's do it. Or like planning. But I like to think Dwight Eisenhower wouldn't. I would like to think he would make that deal.
Me too.
Maybe Nixon did. Sorry. No, I don't know. Sorry. No, I'm not getting into politics. I like Dwight Eisenhower. I like Dwight Eisenhower because of his outgoing message warning about the military-industrial complex, which is a good indication that they probably did take over the whole UFO alien, operation.
Maybe he had that in the back of his mind.
Yeah, I think that was part of that. I mean, look, they created the CIA around the same time. They created the whole intelligence community around that same time, all built around military contractors. Yeah, that's how we get into all these wars. We're not going to get into that. But there's a connection there, and you go down that rabbit hole. But the thing is, are we cooperating? I don't know. Betty and Barney Hill is a fascinating case. I think there's no doubt something happened to them. I think there's physical evidence. There's the eyewitnesses. There's no way that any of that is faked. And this is, in a sense, pre-abduction phenomenon. In a sense that pre-pop culture idea of it.
It's considered,
and some people blame them for the pulp culture. They source it all the way back to that original film with Darth Vader. James Earl
Jones. Yes, I've seen that film, The Interrupted Journey.
Interrupted Journey is a great film.
It is.
I love it. It's if you are into the UFO folklore and all that stuff, you should watch that movie if you can find it somewhere.
It's on Amazon. My husband and I watched it.
I think that's where I watched it
last year or something.
Yeah, I think that's where I watched it too. Was on Amazon. I mean, you should. It's James Earl Jones. I mean, come on, young James Earl Jones. He does a great performance. Come on, you can't give up on that. You got to watch that.
I agree.
But a lot of people think that's what's influenced the whole cultural phenomenon of alien abduction. And then I was telling you to check out my friend Terry Lovelace in the Incident at Devil's Den. Then you have the newer phenomenon of Whitley Strieber, Communion. There's this whole kind of progression of the phenomenon for people who are skeptical. They can trace out where people have gotten this kind of consciousness idea of alien abduction. It's all come from these different things. I don't buy that. I'm just going to preface that right now. But I'm making the skeptics argument to that. What's your thoughts on the whole culture of it, the influence of that original case on everything going on?
Well, I think you hit on a good point that was kind of a demarcation point, the Betty and Barney Hill UFO alien abduction, let's call it what it was. Right. Because, it seems as if all of the stories of gray aliens kind of picked up steam after that. It's considered the first modern UFO abduction story.
Right.
From what I know of some of my research, in the 50s, there were a lot of people who were claiming to have encounters with extraterrestrials. They talked about them being very positive encounters, and that these beings didn't look anything like the gray aliens. I mean, that they looked more like Norse gods with but
Venusian.
Glorious. And long blonde hair, benevolent, that they came as some kind of spiritual guides to help
warning us against nuclear
through
annihilation.
Yeah. But with the Betty and Barney Hill experience, we started to hear a lot more of darker stories of UFO, human and alien encounters. And they became quite frightening after that. So that's always something that's really stood out for me. I always wondered, well, why is that? Well, what's the
Yeah.
explanation for that? Was it a new species of alien that had the Greys I'm talking about, that had different motivations than the benevolent, glorious beings from the 1950s that people had said that they met with and had a lot of experiences with. I don't know. I can't really explain it, but you're right. The stories did start to change at that point.
Yeah, I mean, there's evidence of Greys before the Betty and Barney Hill.
Mhm.
Some descriptions from now, of course, the classic, like 1947 Roswell. I hate it when I see like Roswell and they show like a dead gray alien on the outside. That was not what witnesses described in the Roswell crash. They described cherub-like children. They looked like children, like small but bald children, but they didn't describe big black eyes or what you see as gray skin. None of that. So that but there's we'll get into like 72 alien species. There's different alien species. The gray phenomenon, it does seem to like coalesce to the point of the Betty and Barney Hill case in a sense of that's when it really got into the cultural mindset somewhat, because they're not total. If you watch the Betty and Barney Hill film with James Earl Jones, they don't look like the total gray aliens, but there's a little bit of that grayish kind of look to them, and they have big eyes.
And Betty herself, I saw like a home movie with Betty not that long ago. Somebody came to her house and interviewed her, somebody she knew. And I was surprised, and I didn't realize this, but she was saying, and this was years later, she was saying that the creatures that she met were not gray. They didn't have big slanty black pupilless eyes, that they looked more like us. I mean, they didn't really have hair. They were different. Their features were somewhat different, but they were more human-like than the classic gray aliens.
Yes, I remember that, and that's a lot of people do have those encounters. I mean, they're okay. So like the 1950s had a lot of UFO brotherhood kind of like, I don't want to cults, I don't want to call them that, but communities, groups. The FBI was interested in enough that they, Hoover was sending in secret agents to infiltrate them because they're worried about them spreading communism through aliens. Because what were they talking about? Like utopian societies and, denuclearization, disarmament and things along those lines. So it can, of course, it concerned Hoover. He was always concerned with everything, that he put spies in there. So there was that whole community. They were talking, supposedly talking to human-like aliens. Why change it to that in the movie? That's Hollywood. Who knows? It's just like Fire in the Sky with Travis Walton. They make them look in that movie. And I love the movie, the original movie, but it's not like the book and not what Travis Walton saw. They make them look like these cripply, wrinkly, old, naked aliens. That's not what Travis Walton saw. He saw humanoids. Look like, Nordic. Pretty much like the Venusian Brotherhood kind of thing going on. But people, I do believe, see these gray beings. They have this experience.
Too. Yeah.
But why change the culture? It's almost like they want to change our mindset to all these encounters being the Greys. Maybe it's not purposely. Maybe it's just the way that we work about, like everybody recognizes that as an alien, so the artist puts that up as the alien,
I think there's some of that probably. We fixate on that one image, and it's talked about and it's passed on, and everybody thinks that's what they look like, all of them. But I do agree with you. I do think that there's a gray species, and people report that those are the types of aliens that they have interacted with.
Right.
But yeah,
Whitley Strieber. I mean, he he has gray aliens, kind of grayish. And they're not really actually. If you look at his description, not totally gray. Some of them. There's like droid ones, like little worker drone bot ones. A lot of times are very gray. I think, and they might not be human. They might be totally synthetic, is what I wonder from the descriptions of those, the way that they act. And remember, I always love, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Steven Spielberg. Had all those like little children ones, but be little robots. Look at what we're doing now with the Tesla bot and stuff like that. We're trying to make it look human. We're going to make these things that help us and all that stuff. You're going to make it look somewhat human eventually. That's always the goal. Look at Data and Next Generation Star Trek, trying to make them look human.
Baseball now.
Yeah. Welcome to the AI apocalypse. UFOs come in all different shapes and sizes. Now I understand you had a UFO encounter when you were young. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, sure. Yes, I was in the second grade, and I was at school, and it was recess time. So I recall that I was sitting on a bench, or maybe it was a swing. It was kind of by myself. There weren't any other kids around me. My best friend happened to be sick that day, so she wasn't at school. Normally we would have been together. We were always together. And so I was sitting there, and I looked up, and above me, I see a cigar-shaped object. It was quite long. It was really quite big. I noticed that it was set between two clouds that were at either end of it.
So you couldn't see the ends of it? You just could see the middle of it?
Well, no, I could see most of it, but just really the points at the end I couldn't see. Other than that, it was quite visible. It was really shiny. That's something that stood out to me, how incredibly shiny it was. I don't know whether it was, it certainly looked metal. I don't know whether it was the material it was made out of that made it look shiny, or if it was the sun glinting off of it. But it shone like something that I hadn't seen before, and I've rarely seen since. It also kind of had a prismy type color glinting off of it, probably because of the sun. It looked to me like it had windows. I do recall seeing windows. I don't remember whether I saw anybody at the windows. I did get a feeling, though, that there was somebody in there, and that they were definitely aware of me, and they were looking at me, but I don't recall seeing them. It was just a feeling. So I'm looking up at this object, and I said to myself, wow, that looks like a plane, but it doesn't have any wings. That's so strange. What is it? I didn't have any frame of reference at all, really, for flying saucers. I'd seen movies and things like that, but I hadn't really dwelled on it. But I knew it was really weird. And so after I looked at it, I made that observation, how it looked like a plane, but it didn't have wings. I remember that I looked away, and then I don't know how much time passed. And I looked up at it again, and it was still there. But between when I looked away and I looked up at it again, I have a sense of, what can you call it? What else do you call it? Missing time. Like I lost a portion of my life. It just sort of disappeared. It didn't seem like it was very long, just split seconds. But I definitely had the sense that time had passed.
Distorted.
Yeah. And that I wasn't aware of what had happened in between in that period of time.
Right.
And when I looked back up at it, I was really, really scared. I think when I first looked at it, I was kind of a little worried and concerned, but I wasn't scared.
What scared you? What do you think scared you when you looked away?
Yeah.
What did you see when you looked away? What was it that scared you
it looked exactly the same to me. I don't know. I can't say for sure what scared me. Maybe it's because when I looked away, I was hoping it was going to be gone or something. Right. That when I looked back, it was still there.
Were people gone that were there before?
Oh, yes.
That's a time slip. That's what I was wondering.
Yes. And perhaps it was something about that alarmed me, because there had been it was recess and the playground was full of kids. But when I looked back up at the UFO, at some point I noticed that I was entirely alone and nobody was outside anymore. And I got really terrified, and I just took off running really, really fast to get back to school and go to class. As I was running back to school, I was worried because I thought the teacher would be really mad at me for being late, and that she'd, be angry.
Yeah.
But it was odd because when I walked into the room, she didn't react and nobody reacted. It was as if they didn't even notice that I hadn't been there in the first place.
Right.
And I took note of how odd that seemed to me at the time. So I walked back to my desk and I sat down, and it seems to me that I forgot entirely about that incident as soon as my butt hit the chair. I just totally forgot about it. Then I started to, throughout my life, childhood, going forward, I would remember it, but I'd always forget it again. And every time I remembered it, I felt like I was remembering something for the first time, but at the same time, I knew I wasn't. It was very odd. It was this very strange experience that I don't think I've ever had.
I know that experience.
Do you?
I've talked about it on the show, and I was kind of telling you before the show, is I had I've had several things that I just wrote off. It was either dreams, but one was a camping trip, and I wrote off a whole theme where I just wrote it off as a dream where I was basically I went to sleep at night in this tent, Red River Gorge, Kentucky, with my best friend, and I had gone to sleep with my basically my feet towards the end of the tent with my shoes on. When I woke up, my head was at the end of the tent. My shoes were off. Thought that was a bit weird, but what I woke up from was a hazy recollection of this dream where I was floated up out of my tent. I'm floating above the forest floor, early morning, sun's not even up hardly yet, just starting to come up. And I just remember the thought in my mind that they found me. And some just vague notion of being aboard something on a ship, and something trying to talk to me, but I can't visualize what it is, and that's it. And I wake up from it, and it is early morning, the sun is out, and I go to the cliff. There's this fog out over we're on near this cliff, and my friend's out there drinking coffee, and I asked him, like, oh man, I woke up with my boots off. I put them on. I went to sleep with them on just in case I have to go running in the middle of a forest because we're like 2 miles from civilization, and or more than that actually. And he goes, yeah, I thought it was odd when I woke up. I saw you, turned around. That's weird. I don't know. And then it got really quiet. All the bugs and everything died off. And the next thing you know, this bright beam of light, big as a house, shot through the forest floor, through the mist, up into the sky. And we're like, what the heck? And then it was gone. That's my experience. I've had other ones. When I was 16, this one I didn't write off. I always remembered it, but what was weird is that other people did. I was 16, and I saw a cylindrical craft, but no lights, in the middle of the night, a few hundred feet above my head, and 4 other people's head, fly down Michigan City, right downtown, silently. I remember a buzzing in my head, and just something made me look up. Made all of us look up. We all looked at it at the same time. We all looked up, even though there was no sound, but I could feel like there was this weird buzzing in my head. And this thing went over us, and we're all like, and it just sped on by. It was like the scene out of the Star Destroyer in Star Wars coming over your head. That's how big it was. And the next day, none of them remembered it but me. So I've had these weird experiences. I've had dreams. I had one where I was really sick, and I went to bed, and I had this dream where I was taken, and they were putting this tube down my throat, and chiding me for being a 2-a-pack day smoker, and tell me I need to clean up my act, and they put this fluid into my lungs, and they're like showing me what they're doing, and they like clean out my lungs the next morning, and I felt like I was going to die that night. I couldn't breathe so bad. When I woke up this morning, it was all cleared out. I wrote that off. I wrote all these things off. Being a big X-Files fan, into all this stuff, I wrote all those scenes out, and so I read Terry Lovelace's Incident at Devil's Den, which is his own very dramatic camping trip abduction experience, and he has lifelong abduction experiences, but that was so traumatic, and it reminded me, it brought me back to that camping trip, and I told Terry, it's like my brain was wired to always look away from these things. As much as I'm interested in my own personal experiences, it's like my brain was wired to write it all off, no matter what.
Well, I think that's true of most of us. We question ourselves, and my incident, I'm still not sure whether it was real or not. I have a hard time saying to myself, yes, it happened. I wonder whether I dreamt it or imagined it, because it was a long time ago, and I don't have any evidence of it. I never told anybody of it.
Right. Makes you question it.
Sometimes I'll go back. Well, I did this once. I was like looking through the local newspapers in the town where we lived at the time. I lived in Connecticut at the time, just to try to find if there were any stories about something roughly around the same period, but I never really found anything. So yeah, I'm hardwired as you are to question what I saw, and I sometimes feel like it did happen because when I think about it, I'll often feel really anxious and start to get really nervous when I think about it. But
right. Let's say from the this is a question I was going to get to, and I have it in the comments already. And by the way, guys, if you want your questions for sure to get across to me, we do have YouTube Super Chat. If you ask a question through that, donation does help the show. I will make sure your question's asked to the guest. This one here, though, is a good question I was going to ask from King James. Did she visit a hypnotherapist to find out if she was violated? Nobody's going to really want to visit a hypnotherapist when you term it that way. You're not helping her think about it, but. Hey, have you gone to hypnotherapist to see if you've been violated? Nobody wants to think about it that way. But it is that, in a sense. Nobody wants to go do that, I don't think. But I like you, have you done the hypnotherapist?
No,
tried
I
to
haven't.
get regressed? I haven't either. I haven't.
No,
I have for
I
past
mean-
life, but I have not for that. I'm a bit nervous.
Yeah, I'm a bit nervous about it too. Part of me doesn't want to know whether it was real or not, but part of me is extremely curious to find out whether it was. I have no reason to think that I was abducted. Who knows? Maybe I was. But I feel more like I was an observer of something than I was an abductee. That it appeared to me for whatever reason, I don't know. Maybe someday I'd write a novel about
right. I mean, it could be. I mean,
it could be.
knows?
I mean, bizarre things have happened. I was just going to say, and I don't mean to digress, but just try to make connections. I wrote the beginning of this book, of the Taking, as when I was in graduate school, and I was working with a faculty advisor and et cetera. So when I had my thesis defense, it was supposed to be in one building on a certain day. Well, they changed it that week because there was a conflict of rooms. So they changed it to the library, and this is at the University of New Hampshire. It was a room that was right outside the Special Collections Library, and we were in there. And it struck me while I was in the thesis defense with my faculty advisors and such, all of a sudden it hit me. My God, the Betty and Barney Hill UFO archive exhibit is right on the other side of this freaking wall. And here I am having my thesis, which my thesis project was this book that I wrote. And I was like, that is just so peculiar. That's really strange. I mean, could have been a coincidence.
I don't believe
man, anybody ever get to visit North Hampshire? What is it? I was trying to remember. Is that like you were saying Route 3 or whatever? You can find online. You can drive the route they drove yourself, and it'll like tour you. And I did that in the middle of the night on my own by myself. I was like, "Are you crazy?" I'm like, "No, I had to do it. I was in New Hampshire. I was by myself. I wasn't. I wasn't scared. I was scared I was going to get lost because I had this like really big. This is before like I had a good smartphone with GPS. I had like a Garmin or something like that. A coworker let me have. So I'm using that to like to direct me on this path I mapped out online that they drove. So and it was not a great device. It helped me though. But it would get lost. So I was afraid I was going to get lost. That was the scariest part. Maybe like ask the aliens for directions if they picked me up.
Sure. Was it the middle of winter when you were driving it? Or what time of year
my wife, she all the weird stuff. There's been one night where I woke up with blood on my shirt and there's no blood on my face or nose. Like, I don't know how I got there. There's like specks of bloods all over me. She's like, I don't know what that's about. I'm like, I don't know. I've had weird stuff like that. She hates the whole idea of it. Alien, like paranormal. She's a paranormal investigator with me. Ghosts, demons, it don't bother her any. Aliens, yes, it does. It does. I had a friend. He's deceased now. Kevin Malik, that used to be on the show. His UFO encounter. And this guy is a serious investigator, paranormal investigator. I don't think he's afraid of much, but when he saw a UFO, I think he was in his 20s, he told this story. He saw this glowing orange orb, like out in the field, I think it was, or something like that. He saw this clear day UFO coming down. He said his first instinct wasn't to like go out and look at it more or do anything. It was he hid behind a couch or something like that. He hid. Like it was something instinctual said, yeah, you don't want to get near that. Because look, there are plenty of people who have gotten close to these things and they don't have a good time. They don't. There's sicknesses, burns, radiation. Yeah.
When you said you had been looking around to see if anybody had commented or wrote about the sighting, how long ago was that about?
Yeah, what year?
Was it a while ago?
Oh, my sighting?
Yeah.
Well, she was in second grades.
Oh yeah, I was in second grade, so it was ages, decades ago. Yeah, decades and decades ago.
And that's when you were looking it up, trying to see if anybody else had seen it.
Yeah, yeah. If there were any reports to see if just because I don't have any evidence of my own, and I didn't find anything. Now,
because people might be more apt to feel comfortable about talking about it now, so maybe now you might have some luck.
You never know.
Yeah, that's an idea. Maybe
more people are coming about their experiences
put it on Facebook or something.
Yeah.
Does anybody recall?
It's true, no, because Jamie's right. More of these people, more people are feeling comfortable to come out. I mean, I saw a story recently. Somebody came out about an incident that happened here in LaPorte. And they hadn't talked about it for decades. It happened in the 80s. And I saw, I'm like, hey, I'm from there. And I saw it was a whole story. They had this whole experience. And, they didn't talk about it for decades. People are, have you seen the congressional hearings for the disclosure? Have you seen any of that?
I did.
A little bit of it.
And read about it, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. The only good I see of that is that it puts it out in the public discourse more acceptable to talk about. But I also see it as a what do you want to call it? A dog and pony show.
I tend to
I don't
agree.
think we're getting disclosure from it. I'm sorry. I can trust my government as far as I can throw it, which is nowhere. And most of this is out of their purview. It's gone to military contractors. It's Congress has no access to this, and there's always like this year was $857 billion. I remember when it was almost $1 trillion missing from the Pentagon budget. It happened during 9/11, and then everybody forgot about it. There's always money missing from the Pentagon budget, DoD, and where does that money go? Where it just goes missing? Okay, where do you think that goes? What do you think they're doing with that? Yeah, under congressional preview. No, I mean that's just a rhetorical question, but I think we all know the answer, right? But that's what I'm saying. We're not going to get those answers out of them. I mean, Tim Burchett, I think, has done a good job, being honest about it, and make it. After every hearing, he's like, "Yeah, this is kind of a useless show, but we're just moving the boat along." It's going to take executive actions. What he thinks, I don't think that'll happen either. I don't think it'll come from the executive branch either. I doubt we get much information. Many presidents have promised it, and they've all failed. Jimmy Carter being one of the biggest examples of that. I don't see it. Yeah,
I don't know whether they were talked out of it by the CIA agents, officials, or what, or they made their own decision after they got a briefing that it was just too explosive to release to the public. Maybe after they got the facts, they didn't want to be the president to go down in history for being the ones to blow the cover on the U.S. UFO conspiracy.
From Summerside of Life, he wants to give you a full exam here. Thank you for the $10 donation. Has Donna found any rice-sized lumps on her skin near, say, any ear or by the neck?
No, thank goodness. I haven't. I haven't. That incident I told you about was really the only thing that I know of that happened to me, a UFO, a bizarre
that
sort of UFO
know of.
That I know of. I have no other recollection.
They could be taking the night, Donna, and you wouldn't know.
I know they could.
Right?
I mean,
that's a scary thought to my wife.
Oh, right. I know it's terrifying. It terrifies me too. And I read Whitley Strieber too, and frankly, his books scared the crap out of me. And I couldn't even sleep at night. I had to read them during the day. They definitely gave me nightmares. So I can't say whether, I mean, I don't think that I have any other experiences, but I wouldn't rule them out.
Yeah.
Repressed memories.
Right.
You know, like
you don't know. It's like, do you want to open that Pandora's box? You know, do you want to open? Do you want to know? Whitley Strieber, you've seen the progression of him go from kind of the fearful to the more spiritual side of it over the decades with his experience.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely, you know, changed for him by his own admittance. It's, you know, more of a general communication, and you know, he's not afraid, and you know, it's like the spiritual kind of thing. But I'm sorry, early on, it's pretty frightening. You're talking about anal probes, you know, like they always make fun of it. I'll never forget Whitley Strieber being on what's his name show. Now he's deceased. Big talk show, prime time. Oh, what was his name? The big suspenders. Who am I thinking of? He died a couple of years ago.
Suspenders.
Yeah, big talk. Larry King, thank you. When he was on Larry King, and he's trying to talk about this, you know, basically them probing him and making him ejaculate. Sorry, but that's what he's talking about, and this horrible experience. You know, he's basically being anally raped, and them laughing at him.
I know, it's horrible.
Prime time. It was, you know, this was the early days, and what I will give to Whitley Strieber is he's the first one to go up there and try to have a serious conversation and talk about it. Whatever people's problems with Whitley, I don't have any problems with him, because I think it was pretty brave of him to go up there and do that before anybody was ever talking about this seriously on primetime TV. And he went up there and did that, and they laughed at him. It was horrible. I guess that's Art Bell was famously told this story because he talked to Larry King, and Larry King felt bad about that. He felt really bad afterwards, thought about it, like how bad that was. This guy's trying to pour his heart out about how it's been affecting him, you know, all the horrible things that he went through, you know, and they laughed. And that was like, if that was a rape victim up there, you wouldn't laugh.
I know. And it affected his reputation as a writer, as an author.
Right. He was a fictional
and
writer.
It hurt him, a horror writer. And it hurt his publishing career for coming forward and being honest about his experiences.
But in the end, it didn't. I mean, he made a lot of money off the community. You know, in the end, he made a lot of money off. He got his writing career, in a sense, put into one premise. He was no longer... You know, I really enjoy one of his fictional books. Really, I have a hardback copy of it, because I had to find a hardback copy of this book. I love it so much. It's called Majestic. And it's kind of his fictionalized presentation of what the Majestic 12 might have formed, or how those people initially with the Roswell crash reacted, and really has like one main character who's a Majestic 12 person. It's like the early formation of it. It was really good, and it's
I haven't
fiction.
read that.
Yeah, I really. One of my dream interviews would be Whitley Strieber, and he'd be thinking I'm going to talk about communion. I'm like, no, let's talk about Majestic. Like, my favorite all-time books you've ever wrote. You know, to me, I love it. They should have made a movie out of it. I've talked about, when I saw the title of your book, The Taking, one of my favorite the miniseries. I bring it up on the show. A lot of people, and they never have seen it. 90% of them never have seen it, because it only aired pretty much once, and then you'd have to find the DVD box set to watch it. Is The Taken by Steven Spielberg. Did you ever see that?
No, I didn't.
It came out.
Go ahead.
It was a TV miniseries by Spielberg, who's always fascinated me in this field because of his interest in UFOs.
Yeah.
E.T., Close Encounters. What is that noise? Is that you, Rob? No, it isn't Rob. He's muted. Is that coming from you? Did you guys hear that? You guys are muted. I don't know what that was. That was some weird alien noise. Did you hear it, Donna?
Yeah, I heard that.
Well, you know, I think a plane went over my house.
Wow, we heard it. We heard it. It sounded like an alien ship landed on your house.
Not far from here.
It threw me off. Sorry.
Fly low.
I was like, wait, are the aliens landing now? Okay. All right. Lost my train of thought. Taken, by the way, Spielberg. So he has a progression where he did Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You know, great movie, and maybe documenting something that really did happen. I don't know. E.T., where he tries to give us, again, another friendlier perspective of aliens. Like, everything that Spielberg did early on was like this kind of friendlier perspective of aliens, but he really wanted to do something that was more scary all these years. And he's supposed to be working on a new project about aliens again. This has been his passion, kind of, like, secretly. He loves UFOs, the whole thing. That it's going to be more scary. So I'm interested to see what he does with that. But Taken was really great because it followed like pretty much like three families from starting at the 1947 Roswell crash till the present day at that time. And one family is a military family, like the first general who gets involved at the time, where he's not a general at the time, but he's like a young colonel at the Air Force Base in Roswell. And he helps cover everything up, and he becomes like the head of the project, and it follows his kid, his son, and his granddaughter, who become all head the project. And then it also follows an abductee family, like the one son's being abducted all the time, and then his son gets abducted, and then his grandson gets abducted, and then it follows a half-breed, a woman, a family who are half alien. Basically, the Roswell crash alien impregnated a lady, and it follows that family. So it follows these three families through the generations. And it's really interesting to me because, one, it shows that the whole project's being held with outside the government by these people who were basically families who started with the Roswell in the military. And they pass it on control to their children. And the children control the whole project. And that's what I wonder sometimes, like the whole black community, the underground of what's going on in the whole alien secret government projects, if it's controlled by people that passed it down to their children. How do you keep it secret? So that was one of his things. But it was also interesting because they had the whole human alien hybrid, and they were basically leading up to this point for one child to be born. Not to give the whole thing away, sorry. But it's a great series. You should watch it because it's all about the alien abduction thing and Spielberg's take on it. And interesting that he got really involved in the whole idea of alien abduction, because he went to the whole friendly route, E.T.
right,
phone home, and then the guy willingly going with the aliens in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but took some negative, scary stuff in that. But I'm really interested to see if he goes really negative with his next project.
I wonder if he's had any personal experiences.
Right, I would love
the
to
phenomenon.
Know. Yeah, I would love to know. What the classic story is that Spielberg sat down in a movie theater at the White House with Ronald Reagan, and Reagan turned to him while they're watching E.T. and said, these things are real. You want a jelly bean? Told him these things are real. That's the urban legend. I'd love to ask Spielberg that question. I don't think he does many interviews, but it's fascinating how this stuff has gone through pop culture and the mindset of everyone. How it's evolved and all that. But now we have you have the Greys, you have reptilians, you have, all the Nordic people, you have all these different types of encounters now that people are talking about. Do you think there's multiple races or one, or time travelers? There's so many theories.
Well, I don't see any reason why, if we're getting visited by one species of aliens, why we aren't being visited by others too, other races of aliens. So, of course, I can't say for sure, but I think it's quite possible. Why not? The universe is enormous, and
if you get into the whole multiverse idea, parallel universes, that opens up even a wider field of creatures to come through.
Yes.
And then the time travel perspective, I've always been a fan theory of that one too, possibly. That they come from they may be a possible parallel future possibility of us traveling back. And that's why. That's one of the theories of that are trying to get our genetics. That a lot of especially with the Greys, that's like Whitley Strieber, they were doing these things. They get the male semen from him, and then hybrids and all this stuff. That's the big question: is why are they doing this? What's your thoughts? What are their intentions?
Well, I've heard a lot of stories, read a lot of things about the human hybrid programs, breeding programs. That certainly could be an explanation. I don't pretend to have any answers. I speculate based on what I've learned from other people's stories, experiences, and I try to just. I think I have more questions than I do answers.
Right.
But I'm just kind of fascinated by the whole thing. And every time I hear a new theory, I'm just like, wow, maybe, who knows? Maybe. In my novel, I don't really try to answer any questions. I'm merely presenting a story and saying, well, what if? Kind of thing. You know,
Right.
what if? But I don't want to draw any conclusions because I can't say.
Yeah. And who can? I mean, I don't
I
know.
love
So many,
that.
yeah. I mean, I've always wanted to write a novel, and I've written some attempts, but I would never try to write one that's to give the whole explanation of why the aliens are. I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. There's so many different perspectives and possibilities of what's going on here. It's just the question that I don't have is that is it going on? It is going on. And me, I go for my fascination since I was a kid is I like I said, I was like really young. My mom had a hardback cover of Chariots of the God by Eric von Daniken. And I became very young age believer that the Old Testament of the Bible and a lot of the other ancient cultures and everything are ancient aliens, that we've been visited, that we've been influenced. We had pre-civilizations that were more advanced of ours that were here that might have been destroyed by aliens or ourselves, more likely. But the aliens have somehow had a guiding hand in our existence. It's not to take away from religion or Christianity or Islam or anything in that. I'm not trying to. But from my perspective, especially the Old Testament, that's probably aliens. That's my idea. That's just my thought. I might be wrong.
Or both could be true. I mean,
right.
I don't
you get in the
think
interdimensional thing, it could be.
Well, I guess this comes with being open-minded and saying, well, I don't have all the answers. I don't know, and I don't think anybody
Me
does.
neither.
I think it's a lot hidden. So, to me, to believe in a divine being,
I do believe in God.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't preclude that you can't believe in the existence of extraterrestrials and say that they may have been coming to Earth and playing some role in our evolution or helping us along or interfering and disrupting our lives.
Right.
It's just like I don't say that because science presents us with certain explanations that it proves that there's no God, because science can answer some of the questions that we have about nature, in detail, and explain it in chemistry.
Like the Catholic Church came out. What was that back in? Was that 2017? I can't remember. They when the Catholic Church came out and put the acceptance of possibility of alien life in the universe.
Absolutely, yeah.
They were trying to get ahead of the game, maybe. That's the worry. Like, with full disclosure, if the aliens landed on the White House lawn, please don't do that, aliens. Please don't do that. Please. But if the aliens did that, don't take them to our leaders, any of them. But if they did that, and it all overwhelmingly proved it to everyone in the world that they were real and that they've been here the whole time or coming now and being invaded or any of that stuff, the theory and the reason of disclosure is that everybody lose their God-loving minds, religions would fall apart, and anarchy, chaos, raining cats and dogs. I mean, what's your thoughts? Is that the reason for disclosure? Panic, people, civilization losing it, that kind of deal.
I think probably, yeah. I think that's part of it. I don't know. There may be other reasons, like some nefarious thing that doesn't do any of us any good. And maybe he's malevolent in some way. But yeah, probably having to do with trying to keep order on Earth and from pandemonium, panic, aggression, because
we haven't shown the best example. I mean, my example for aliens coming by Earth is, from National Lampoon's Vacation. Like, roll up the window, Russ. Roll them up. That's the aliens. Like, roll up the windows, just drive on by. Don't land on that Earth. They shouldn't. They really shouldn't. We give them plenty of examples. What we would do to aliens in all of our movies. That stuff's been broadcast out there. I think they've seen it.
Yeah. Well, there would be some of that, and some of it might be justified. The alarm, because if suddenly they showed up, we don't know why they're here. And
I'm waiting. So, I mean, the way the things, the movie that scared my mom, I think, when she would tell me about her thoughts on aliens, was the day the Earth stood still. Are aliens going to show up and say, "We've had it. We had it with you, dumb humans," and like give us an ultimatum? They're going to wipe us out.
It could be. I mean,
because we're
of course,
stupid.
We think that it's something to do directly with us. Who knows whether it is or not? Maybe they don't really give a hoot about us, or some of them. But they just come here and they're they watch and they this and they that, but we're so, earth-centric, egocentric, that we think it's all about us. So there's a lot of questions. Who knows?
We think we're the
I
only
guess
ones
we
who've been
won't know
the inhabitants of this planet. They could be just as much inhabitants of this planet the whole time. We don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
The Silurian theory, that pre-civilization alien race could have lived here, hibernated, could wake up, or something like that, or the underground Earth, hollow Earth theory that they've been here with us the whole time.
Yeah, they could be living in the underworld or in the oceans.
And it would explain their sudden peak of activity during 1940s when we were dropping nuclear bombs in the ocean and testing. And then we suddenly have this spike of UFO sightings. Because why? Because dumb humans are exploding nukes on the surface of the planet. And they're like, we better go start sending probes out and ships and find out what the hell these humans are doing. Let's make some contact with their government on the surface and tell them to cut it out. That's the kind of the theory of what happened with the nuclear age and with the UFO phenomenon. And I think there's something to it. I mean, Maelstrom, where they shut down the nukes remotely somehow, then you have them turning them on in Russia. If their interest is in nukes, they got to be really interested in us right now with what's going on in the world. They got to be really interested. And that's why my prediction was we'll have more UFO sightings, especially above nuclear installations and military bases. And that's exactly what I've talked about in the World Wide Web of Weird. We're there, and nuclear tensions are super high. Everything you know about the Eisenhower case that supposedly happened, where if he met with these aliens, they were telling us we have to disarm our nukes. We can destroy ourselves. They were very concerned about our nuclear proliferation.
Yeah. I have a question. I just thought of it. Never thought about it before, but do you know if there were a lot of UFO reports at the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis back in 1962?
That's a great question, and I think I wouldn't know if there was a peak. That is a great question to know, because that was like the closest we came. That really is the Kennedy. Really, people realize how close we came. Watch the movie 13 Days. We came so close to nuclear annihilation, and you got to think the aliens had to be somewhere involved, or no. Some people say they killed Kennedy because he was going to reveal about aliens. I don't know, but that was our closest. We really were ready to go. We had our military down President Kennedy's neck, trying to get him to preemptively launch.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great reminder. You people, if you don't know about the Cuban Missile Crisis, or any younger generation out there watching, you should really learn your history on it, because it tells you a lot about the mindset of these monsters that run the military, what stakes they were willing to play at the time, and what could be going on now.
And find out if there were.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know. I mean, there's definitely UFO activity happening, I'm sure, in the 60s like that, but if it was increased during those 13 days, it would be interesting to know. We got to go to commercial break. Our guest tonight, Dona Masi, the author of The Taking. We're going to take phone calls when we come back from this commercial break. If you want to call in, share your experiences with our guest tonight, comment or ask her a question when we come back from the short commercial break.
Conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time
for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard. Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift, a refreshing and fun read. I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Wrote Spirits of the Dead with a pen dipped in warm blood. You will see the ultimate in terror with this important all-star cast. Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda in Edgar Allan Poe's Spirits of the Dead. Only Poe's demented genius could bring to the screen such horror and evil. Spirits of the Dead stars Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda. Directed by three masters of the cinema, Federico Fellini, Louis Malle, and Roger Vadim. Spirits of the Dead is an adventure in terror beyond your wildest nightmares. Spirits of the Dead in color is rated R.
That this city is headed for a disaster of biblical proportion.
What do you mean, biblical?
What he means is Old Testament, Mr. Mayor. Real wrath of God type stuff.
Exactly.
Fire and brimstone coming down from the skies. Rivers and seas boiling.
40 years of darkness, earthquakes, volcanoes.
The dead rising from the grave. Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest is Dona Masi. She's the author of The Taking. We're talking about alien abduction, the whole experience. If you've had an experience, I know you have. I know you guys out there. Even if you talked about it before, you're welcome to call in and discuss it with our guest tonight, Dona Masi, author of The Taking. All perspectives apply. We all are trying to figure out what the alien abduction phenomenon is by sharing notes and our experiences like on shows like this and people writing books like Donna and researchers out there. We got to share this information and figure out what is going on with the alien abduction phenomenon. I know it's real. You know it's real. It's happening to people. I definitely believe in their experiences, and I'll believe in yours. Call in tonight. Join the conversation. But let's go ahead and get back to our guest. Thank you for Donna hanging out with us tonight. And the phone lines are now open, guys. Call in, join the conversation with our guest, Dona Masi. Now,
hello again.
What do you think? I honestly think right now, if they were to land on the White House lawn, I mean, that would be bad. But honestly, the way people have come, if this in the 90s, let's say, even they had these kind of UFO hearings and were showing the stuff that they are, which I swear they show us the crappiest of evidence. But even to show any evidence during a congressional hearing would have been news phenomenon. Everybody would be talking about it. Nowadays, everybody's on their phone like, oh, what's going on in Instagram? It's like there's some of us that are like, wow, yeah, they're talking about it, and there's some of you that are like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. We're so distracted with so many things. I mean, that nuclear Armageddon, plagues. I don't know. We're distracted by a lot of things. It's like the perfect time to start slipping out the alien stuff, maybe.
Yeah, well, a lot of people, particularly before there was any kind of disclosure, quote unquote, from the government, didn't pay much attention to it, and they were really dismissive of the subject. So maybe that explains, why people don't pay attention to it. It could, Although I do think there's more interest now than there was before.
Oh yeah.
Or openness, for sure.
The internet has a big thing to do with it. I don't have a TikTok account. I live vicariously through Jamie to look up stuff for me on there. But TikTok's full of videos besides the paranormal ghost stuff of UFOs and people supposed sightings. And we with the community and internet communication, and we have all these different stories that are now out there that never were back in the day. People had access to all this information. It's undeniable that people have an interest in it. Netflix just did another alien kind of documentary about the Manhattan abduction. I still haven't watched it yet. About the lady who got abducted out of her high tower, whatever, apartment in New York or something like that, in Manhattan.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've heard that story.
Yours, Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Rob. Oh, I was just going to say it was supposedly witnessed by some UN official too.
Right, that's been the lore of it for all these years.
Yeah.
I've seen evidence of that, the whole story being ripped apart as nothing, and other people saying no, it is, and I don't know. I haven't heard the greatest things about that documentary. They did another one a few years ago on the Tanzania case with John Mack in '96, which was interesting to re-see those children as adults talk about that experience and everything. And yours was a schoolyard incident as well, very similar in a sense. We've had Preston Dennett on here who wrote a whole book on schoolyard UFO instances where children in schoolyards seem to be approached or, have contact with aliens at school, and it's always out in the schoolyard. I even had a teacher from one of my son's classes have something similar like that happen on a field trip where his whole class saw a UFO.
Really?
It's like somehow, maybe they're interested in the children. Maybe it's the hybrid program. Maybe you're a hybrid.
It's funny you mentioned John Mack because he definitely was an influence on me for some of my ideas from for the taking. Not actual tales that he had to tell, but just some of his ideas that came out of his treating of patients for trauma who came to believe that they were UFO experiencers if they didn't think so when they began the treatment. And so yeah, he definitely influenced me.
Only problem I have with John Mack and the Tanzania one is he had a certain perspective, and when he interviewed people, especially children who are impressionable, he influenced them with that perspective. There's no question about it. The way his
I know
questions
he's controversial. A lot of people.
I just wish he could have taken that Tanzania case and tried to do it in a more detached approach, in a sense of not influencing the children in any way, just getting the pure experience, because there are some contradictions between the children and what they saw and experienced, and not try to influence that at all. Let's just take all those perspectives and look at them all, and let's not try to influence that in any way. not try to guide them in any way. And I'm not saying that he was purposely doing that, but it's the way that he questioned these children. You can watch the interviews and see what I'm talking about. There is some guidance there in what he's trying to, like, you know, like, you don't tell. I don't understand. I understand. His point was that children don't understand what telepathy is, so I need to tell them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like things like that. I get why his questions went the way they were, to try to guide them into like their experience and understanding what their experience was. I get that, but at the same time, you're telling that you're guiding even the messaging, like what they're getting. Like basically, the planet is, you know, in danger. Or, you know, that's like I felt like they were guided too much by John Mack's questioning. There's a good documentary on that too. I don't know. I think he's a hero in the industry, you know, in the field, for what he did. But that Tanzania case, it's like we need to. I would love to have just taken all those kids' stories, separated them all out, no influence on the questions, and let's look at it, because it is interesting when you look at some of the differences between the children and what they drew, and they did see some different things. It doesn't mean it wasn't real. Doesn't mean that. It just means we're not understanding what these children witnessed.
Yeah. Well, what John Mack did for me was he made me think of the alien abduction phenomenon as a real human story, whereas before I'd never thought about it quite like that. I thought of it as more of a UFO, alien, extraterrestrial story, but he made me say to myself, boy, if this is really happening, then there's a human impact. There's impacts on real human beings. So it humanized it for me. And then I began to think and wonder, well, what is it? What's the emotional impact, the psychological impact on experiencers? How do they cope with those experiences? How do other people that love them, that know them, how do they deal with it? Are these experiencers able to talk to people about them? Do others believe them? I imagined that if you are an alien abductee, during the time when you don't know what's going on, all the way, but you're having subconscious, some kind of effects as a result of it, whether it be dreams, memories that you can't explain, buried memories, unexplained trauma, that and then once you find out what's happening to you and dealing with that whole mind-blowing realization that you're confronting the unknown, and that you have a story to tell that a lot of people aren't going to believe, and you can barely believe it. And how do you, when you have no control over your life, not knowing what's going to come next, what do you do? How do you live a normal life? How can you be happy under those circumstances? So John Mack made me start to think about a lot of those things, because he primarily, as far as I understand from reading some of his writings, he basically was treating people for their trauma and trying to have them find some explanation, if not an explanation, some sense of purpose for why this was happening to them, to make some sense of it, to be able to live with it and not have it just completely rule their lives, and to be able to leave somewhat of a semblance of a normal life despite what they were undergoing and what they feared might happen at any moment over and over again. So I really do thought, wow, that sounds like it could make a really dramatic and emotional story, and an interesting one, and a suspenseful one.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
that sparked some of my not my story ideas, but themes, I think.
Definitely. I mean, I like I said, you see people that are. What more could you be isolated when you have loved ones and friends that are not into anything UFO or whatever? Would you tell them? Would you go to your spouse or parents or best friend that have no belief in UFOs, think those people are crazy, and you're experiencing this? Are you going to speak up? Are you going to think you're crazy? A lot of people don't. I wonder how many people are living with this secretly. We do got somebody on the phone line. Who do we got?
Hi, Jason. It's Azariana. How are you tonight?
Hi, Azariana.
And Rob and Jeremy.
Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to answer kind of her question and then make a comment. Yeah, I've lived with this from the age of 5, varying degrees. Jason knows a little bit about it. I do hate repeating myself, but
You're fine.
it has definitely affected my life to the point that I find myself a little paranoid because they do track me. And it's kind of like not knowing, well, I do kind of know when they're coming back. And it's kind of like that fear of, can I stop it? You know, can I hide? Can I run? Where can I go? And I can't, and I can't, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I have said something to a couple of members of my family and they just laugh at it and go, yeah, okay, you know. Yeah, so I don't say too much privately with my family because they tend to not believe it, you know. But it's a family thing. It's generational family thing, like a contract. And I do worry about my family being affected also, you know.
Yeah. This is Donna. I just wanted to ask you a question. So you said that this has happened with other families members, but there are members of your family who don't believe you and that they laugh at you. And I wonder how that makes you feel to not be believed by some people who are close to you and to have them laugh at you.
Yeah, well, I just kind of don't say anything anymore, and it's like very hurtful, you know, deep down. But
yeah,
I mean, it's just that I know stuff that they either won't accept or think of it as, you know, oh, it's another story, you know, that kind
Do you
of thing.
think they're afraid
or
to
maybe
believe
I
you?
got it.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
That could be. I mean, one of my family members was having nightmares for a couple of weeks, and where this family member was scared, and all he was seeing was aliens. Now, this is a child, and this family member doesn't know anything about aliens. You know, he's into kid stuff, you know, Paw Patrol and things like that, you know? And he didn't want to go to bed. He didn't want to do anything. And why is he having nightmares, you know? So I took her aside and I said, how long has he been having them? Is there anything else going on? No, it's just nightmares. No, really, tell me, you know? And she got really upset going, no, it's just nightmares. It's a phase. They'll get out of it, you know, things like that. And I'm going, you got to have something done. You got to have something done, you know? So again, the fear that another family member might be abducted or have horrible experiences, or, you know, disguised as good ones, you know, things like that, you know?
Fascinating.
And, yeah, and, let's see, my experience is that, you said you were in Connecticut. I don't know when or what age you were in Connecticut.
Yeah, I was a small child at the time.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, there's a certain part in Connecticut that is known, well, by me and other people who have experienced abductions and things, that is kind of known for UFOs and sightings and things like that. And many years ago, I used to have to drive home, and I used to have to take that route. And I would always tell my husband at the time, no, can you go another way? And he would say, why? I said, just please go another way tonight, you know? Well, the one time he did not listen, it only took so many minutes to go from one destination to where we were living at the time. Well, I remember getting on, and then I remember being back in the car, and it was 2 to 3 hours later. And I looked at the time, and I said, you know, honey, it shouldn't have taken us this long. What the hell happened, right? And he goes, well, what time is it? And he looked at his, you know, his watch, and yeah, I don't know what happened. So we did have a time slip, missing time, whatever it was. But we did not remember it. We remember the time slip, but we don't know what happened in between.
That's the missing time part, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean,
sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I just,
Go ahead.
if it's okay, if you don't mind sharing, I wonder where in Connecticut this location is that you're referring to.
There's a part between, it's called Route 8. It's the Naugatuck, Ansonia, Seymour, Bridgeport connection. It's a highway. And there's a spot on top called Holy Land. It used to be an amusement park that the Catholic Church had. Go figure. Anyway, they had
Catholic Church had an amusement park? We'll get back to that.
Yeah, no, the Catholic Church had an amusement park for all the Catholic people in Connecticut. And anyway, they had this, from the highway and from certain areas, you could see this big cross. And it stands out, you know, you could see it in quite a few directions. And that's where they've always been sighted. That's one of the spots where they've always been sighted. And I always hated going to that, you know, driving around it, you know, whatever, in that area because of that. Because on certain times, you know, I don't know if they landed or whatever the case was, but that was a hot spot.
Yeah.
In my state. And it still is to this day. I avoid it at all costs. Because I got enough issues as it is going on with them. So
yeah, life is hard enough without alien abductions.
My wife won't like it, but if I ever go back, if I ever go to Connecticut, I want to check it out.
Yeah.
I just won't tell my wife where we're going. I'm like, we're just a scenic route.
Yeah, well, yeah, like I said.
Sorry.
No,
Go
it's
ahead.
a hot spot. It's a hot spot. No, continue, ma'am. Continue, miss.
Well, I was just going to say that I know of Holy Land. I've heard of it. I remember as soon as you mentioned it, I'm like, I remember that from my childhood. Because I lived in Connecticut till I was around 9. But I don't know whether we ever went there. But I remember that big cross that you're talking about. Definitely. Saw that from the road.
That means you were in the area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, you know, I've got a lot more experiences and tackling this other experience lately, but I won't go into that. I'll let somebody else call in.
Well, thank you, Azarian, so much for calling in.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
And have a blessed night.
You too. You have a great night.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye.
You do have these areas that seem to be hot spots, like the Hudson Valley area. That's where Whitley Strieber's cabin was, and he was having most of his experiences as that cabin, the Hudson Valley area. And there's always tons of UFO sightings there and cryptid sightings. It's a kind of a paranormal little hotbed through there. You got a number of areas throughout the United States and in Europe and others that are kind of hot spots. Where you can maybe go see one of these things. I don't know.
And they all seem to have a whole bunch of different kinds of phenomenon, like you just mentioned, in New York, Hudson Valley, etc. The Bigfoots, UFOs, ghost stories.
Yeah. I mean, the whole area through there is pretty haunted and cryptid and UFO. Is it the energy of the area that does it, or we talk about things that are interdimensional, but it might make sense, why they're there, or they need the power, or maybe it's a side effect of their transportation devices or something like that. It's ripping open the time-space vortex, letting, Mothman through or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
There's something there. Why I call the show Paranormal Soup is I feel like there's a connection a lot of times between these things when you get to, because there's a little aspect where people talk about in their abduction phenomenon where they see loved ones who passed away. Like there's some connection to even them in part of our afterlife, or that they're part of even our rebirth process, reincarnation. Because some people, they chose to come live here and that they're actually alien souls. I've had those guests on.
Yeah.
What do they call them? Starseeds.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that whole idea, we could just be vessels. All of us are an alien hybrid program, and that you can't live on the environment of a planet. Well, you can grow a new body to inhabit that can, and maybe that's what we are, and that's what the hybrid process is that they can then live on this environment with us.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe hybrids are walking among us now? Think that's possible? Because they say that.
I think it's possible. Here again, I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but it certainly could be.
One of my favorite movies is John Carpenter's They Live.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
Roddy Piper, great guy. Deceased now, but one of his very rare few movies he did, but one of my favorites, John Carpenter's They Live. In that, the aliens have taken over civilization and everything. We just don't know it. And they live amongst us, and he gets these sunglasses that he can see the subliminal messaging that they're using and the people that are really aliens. He can see through their disguise and all that. And you wonder, all the conspiracy theories, all the Illuminati and the control, is there some kind of alien agenda you think that is controlling our government? And all governments of the world.
Well, I'm a big X-Files fan.
Mm-hmm.
And
Me too.
that's a kind of an ongoing theme of, the Illuminati, or whatever you want to call it, the modern day Illuminati, because powerful men controlling everything, and they have this big plan that nobody knows about.
Like a fake alien invasion is their plan.
Yeah. It has some sort of supernatural paranormal thing going on, and they're in cahoots with the aliens, and that they have some control over our government. And so, yeah, perhaps. I mean,
Men in Black.
sometimes I do go, well, something sounds a little too far-fetched for me. And that might be one of them. But here again, I'm not going to say, no, it isn't true. Because it may be. I'd rather be open-minded than be completely blindsided and totally surprised if the truth ever came out,
I mean, we got whistleblowers. We got people. We've had them for decades. People have come out. Philip Corso, Bob Lazar, if you can believe them, that have told us this. They've told us there's this secret program and that they have UFOs and that's all there. I mean, Bob Lazar said stuff that later was predicted true. Maybe he's wrong. Maybe it's all a scam, or maybe he's right. And we've had a secret alien program. Where's that in these congressional hearings? Not going to get that. Nor do they ever bring up alien abduction. They only talk about the stuff people see, the UFOs up in the skies, but they haven't even touched upon the idea of alien abduction in these hearings.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
they don't
purposely
want us
so.
to know. Don't you think it's strange that after the Roswell, the Air Force came out and they said, "Oh, a flying saucer landed and we've got it. There's a spaceship. We've got it." And then the next day, they came out and denied the whole thing. Just complete, total 180-degree flip.
Well, I don't think they ever meant it to come out, but it was a guy working in the at the base who had the presumptive thought is, I'm going to post this right away. And Jesse Marcel, I think, had a little bit to do with that, told him to do it, to post this story. Because I think in the back of their mind, they had a feeling this was going to get quieted. And they were putting it out there. That somebody, shut down. They were just so shocked that they're like, this is going to be world news. And the people at the base, the guy, I can't remember the guy's name that put that press briefing out, thought, well, this is going to be worldwide news. We're all going to know. And then they came down and said, no, you made a, no.
Yeah,
we need a news statement. And you see Jesse Marcel, looking up, what the F is this? Is the look on his face is so sad. You can almost see it in his face is like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Here, throw me under the bus. I'm the dumb guy that mistaked a weather balloon for a UFO. And then years later, they come out and say it's Project Mogul, which actually didn't exist until the 50s, until after.
And hasn't his son come forward to verify his father's story of what he saw?
Oh, yeah. Many years ago.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's other people that have come out to verify that story. I mean, I think Roswell really, Stanton Friedman and others really capitulated, got that story into the public's attention in the 80s. It was pretty quiet for a long time. It was known, but it wasn't like it is until some of these books that came out in the 80s that really explored the Roswell. And then they're interviewing these people many years later at that time about what happened. But I find it interesting how much, like I said, it kills me when I see pictures of Roswell and they show a round saucer ship crashed with a gray alien when it was none of that. It was like a V-shaped wing. And the aliens were more cherub, childlike looking with big, irises, eyes, but not like black eyes like grays.
Yeah.
Those things are interesting. I've had on Paul Blake Smith. I forgot his name a couple shows ago. I'm not forgetting it now, Paul. Sorry. Who wrote about Cape Girardeau, 1941, and that's pre-Roswell crash. It was even Rush Limbaugh mentioned it once on the show because it was his hometown. It was a crash that happened in 1941, and there was bodies, and supposedly they took these bodies to the Capitol, and there's a hidden room in the Capitol building where they have alien stuff. This is pre-Wright-Patterson. This is pre-Roswell, before they knew what to do with this stuff. Of course, when Roswell happened, then they're shipping this stuff to Wright-Patterson later, in 1947. It's an interesting, you start looking at the early crash phenomenon and our government response and how they dealt with it. Like Roswell, it seemed like they were ready. Why? Maybe because they had the 1941 Cape Girardeau incident. They had already had crashes. And then you have the supposed crashes like Aztec, the crash, and the another New Mexico one, 48, I think, is the supposed one. Some of these get confused and aligned together. You have possibly a crash in Germany during the World War II that they think the Nazis had access to UFO technology. And you have the Russians.
The Russians, yeah.
And then the Chinese possibly have their own. These things could have been crashing all over the place come pre-early 1940s, 50s, because were we being invaded? Were they getting interested in the nuclear war? And then things are interfering with aircraft, making them crash. I don't know. We had a lot of crashes early on from 1940 to 1960. And now we know.
At some point, a bunch of governments got together and decided that they were going to all cover it up. If they knew what was going on in each other's nations, because every government on Earth pretty much has taken the same position. Deny, deny, deny. So it just
Is there
makes
some
me wonder
agreement?
whether they ever got together and talked about it and had some sort of agreement about it.
It's an under the table agreement, and
The
when
UN
we're
was
at
a
these,
part of that.
well, we're at these tensions
Yeah.
right now. What's to say Russia doesn't come out and say, "Hey, we've known all along. We're not going to be quiet anymore. There's aliens, and they have alien technology, and so do we." Or somebody comes out of the bag with it. I don't know. I think, like I said, a lot of this resolves in the military contractors who are funding both sides, giving weapons to both sides. You know what I'm saying? They make more money off of war. I think the energy sector, if you look at a lot of the Department of Energy and their conduct and things they've been interested in is interesting. And the oil industry, how much they might be involved in this, trying to suppress it because it could, if they have the capabilities that we see, we're talking about 0 point energy. We're talking about revolutionizing energy. There's no way they're running that off of nuclear, our nuclear reactors. There's something way beyond that. It could be free energy. It would change the whole economics of the world. So that people with a lot of money was invested interest to keep that secret. I mean, look what they did to Tesla. When he tried to give free energy,
Right.
They shut him down and made him a pauper. Made him look like a crazy man. Look at all the people that have died that have researched or been inventors in 0 point energy, or any free energy. How many people have died? It's a long list. If that's the one reason to keep this under disclosure is for the energy sector. But on the military side, it's also like, you want to think you're the biggest, baddest guy on the block, and you're not anymore. If UFOs are real, you're not in control anymore. You're not the biggest, baddest boy on the block, You don't have the biggest guns anymore.
And
There's
maybe
something
they're not
beyond our
talking
control.
about it. Oh, maybe their governments aren't talking about it because they've been able to get alien technology from the crashes in their nations, and they want to hang on to that technology.
Right.
They want those secrets themselves, and they don't want to share it with the world because then other governments are going to be trying to do the same thing. And so, I do think that behind the United States is secrecy about it. That I have a feeling that that's part of it. We have these technologies that have been reversed engineered from crashed UFOs, and we don't want our adversaries to know about it.
Yeah, that'd be the
When are
biggest
we
threat.
going? Why are we keeping it so secret? Why don't we just flaunt it around then? And maybe we know other nations have it too.
I think one of the reasons is because we haven't mastered it. We haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest part of it is I don't think we've totally reverse engineered it either. And that's the danger is another country doing it before us. And that's the biggest reason to probably keep it secret. One of the questions from the chat room, where was that, Jamie? You had it? Where'd it go? You had it up just a second ago. I missed it. There it is. Oh, yes. How about a synopsis of her book? So what is the book really central around? Well, you want to talk a little bit about that? Not to give it away, but for the audience before we go so they know what your book is really, premise of the book.
Yeah, great. It is a story about a girl who is an alien abductee. Aside from being a suspenseful story about the alien abduction phenomenon, it's about ordinary people and relationships between, family members, friends. There's even, love story in there too, because these people, I wanted to show the humanity in these people. So there's a lot of, I think that there are things that are relatable. The characters are relatable because they could be really anybody you know. So there's no like intergalactic wars or anything. It's a realistic story with this paranormal element going on. I can have the back of the book cover. So perhaps I could just read you the first paragraph. It's an unnatural silence and a feeling that you are all alone in the world. John and his daughter Vera grieve the loss of Vera's mother, who mysteriously disappeared when Vera was a baby. As John struggles to raise his troubled daughter, he dismisses connections between his wife's disappearance and Vera's bizarre dreams of otherworldly creatures. And it's set in New Hampshire, in a rural community in New Hampshire, my home state. And so that's basically a short synopsis of the story. So there's a lot of suspense. There's humor in it too, because it's not, I think that there are scary parts in it, definitely.
Well, I'm getting the beginning of it is a
Go
father
ahead.
and daughter, and the mom went missing, right? Like the mom is gone missing, or went missing early on, I guess.
Yeah.
And
She
the
disappears.
daughter's discovering that something special is going on with her. Is where I'm at. Just at the beginning of the book, that's
Yeah.
an interesting premise to start with.
The mother disappeared long before the book begins. And it's always been something that has been a source of great pain for both of them, for the father and the daughter. And something that's caused a lot of heartbreak that really nobody's faced up to entirely. So it's held them back in that respect. It's held not only her back, but her father too. He has a lot of guilt. He doesn't know what ever happened to her, his wife. And so there's that hanging over their head. And that so these experiences, that heartache, not knowing, and plus the mysterious circumstances of her disappearance, and then the underlying tension of the characters, young girls, UFO encounters, alien abductions that she's not aware of yet, that really play a part in the dynamics in their relationship from time to time, in the girl's personality to some extent, how she sees the world, how she looks at other people, how she thinks about her own life. She's, I guess, one of the character traits that I would say that she possesses, perhaps probably in part because of her experiences, is that because she has been victimized, even before she even knows that this is happening, she really detests that when she sees other people who are oppressed and victimized too. So
did you try to like interview or research or talk to anybody who were abductees?
I've talked to them individually. Yeah, I have talked to people as individuals, private meetings. I have tried to be invited get myself invited into support groups for alien abductees, but I haven't had any success in that.
I can understand
I just
why.
called them up and I said, I'm doing this and doing that. It was before I was going to write The Taking. It was well before that. I was doing a research paper for a college class, an anthropology class, and I was writing about UFO folklore. And so I was hoping to interview alien abductees, people who thought they were anyway, through a support group, but they wouldn't let me in. And I respected that and I understood because these people, first of all, they are afraid that, they don't know the motives of the person who's a stranger who's trying to get themselves invited to their group. What are their motives? Are they there to mock me? Are they there to humiliate me, call me out, call me a liar? Are they going to believe me? And for many people, this is so traumatic and frightening, and it's such an emotional experience. And to be that vulnerable when you're talking about it, if you're going through that. I mean, a lot of people have post-traumatic stress disorder, from it. So I did understand. I was disappointed I couldn't, but I understood.
I felt bad for liking a show called because it was a comedy, but I felt bad for liking it because I felt like it was a harm to the people in these kind of groups. There was a show called People of Earth, and it revolves around a UFO abductee support group. Now they are really being abducted. That's the whole premise of the show. They make a comedy out of it. These people are really being abducted while the whole world thinks they're crazy. They're actually really being abducted. And the aliens in it are hilarious. Hilarious. It was a hilarious show. And I think it had 2 seasons before they canceled it. I mean, they had reptilians. They had the whole conspiracy shebang thrown into this show. It was it was hilarious, but it was like around these poor people's lives that are just destroyed by all this, like completely destroyed. And they're in this support group, and it's all very comedic. But at the same time, I was watching, I feel bad. I'm like, because there's real people. It's not funny. They're going through stuff, and these groups are their lifeline half the time. They don't have anybody to talk to, so it's like it's kind of bad for the community. But I did find it funny. It was funny.
Yeah, I wonder how people who are alien abductees, if they saw the show, I wonder how they took it, what their reaction. Whether they thought it was funny or they thought that it was just more mocking their experiences, or not.
Yeah. It makes you think, though, like about a lot of the conspiracies in that show that are going on. Like, that would make sense why that's going on. They do it in a flippant, humorous way, but it's like, in the story sense, it's all going on. There are really aliens, and they're, taking people. It was like a Nordic alien and a gray alien working together on this abduction thing. And all these people were abducted since they were children, which I thought was really interesting. There's a lot of facets of the whole thing that they put into that show I thought were really fascinating, but they did it in a comedic sense. So, a serious outlook on the abduction phenomenon. Like I said, that Take Him in Your series, I loved. Your fictional book, the Taking, I think I'm going to be very much fascinated to get into and read. I am going to call the show early because I am starting to feel it, like the voice going for me here soon, because of the sinus drainage and that. But I do want people to check out your book. You can find it on Amazon, of course. Is it released yet?
It's being released in January. Right now it's in pre-order, and it is on Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and many different sites where books are sold. There's a print version of The Taking and also an ebook. And so they're both available for pre-order. If you pre-ordered it now, you would get you probably receive it in January 2nd or so. I think they guarantee delivery by then, which is coming up pretty fast, as it is,
And do you think the final takeaway for anybody who reads this book, do you think they're going to feel, even though it's fictional, it might give them more of an idea that this is a real phenomenon?
Possibly, yeah. They possibly could. I hope at the very least that it would make them think about, well, if this is real, wow, this really is this is a story about people. Human beings, not just some, story about the galaxy or galactic stuff. It's a psychological trauma, emotional trauma, and you can't
emotional damage.
Yeah, you can't believe in the existence. Yeah. We're so focused in our reality, and most of us think that that's all there is, but then when you find out that there's much more than that to existence, it's really mind-blowing. Yeah. So whether it turns out to be a positive experience for you or not, just finding that out is something that has to be dealt with. Oops, my earbud fell out. Maybe that's a good timing.
Well, yeah, I am, because I'm like my throat's starting to go. I can feel it a little bit. So I am going to end the show a little bit early tonight. You've been great, Donna. Definitely check out her book. The Taking is on pre-order now.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
My mic.
It's all right. It's all right, because we're going to end the show there. That's it for the show, guys. We'll be back next Sunday. Same bad time, same bad channel. Check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Follow and subscribe. If you want to help donate to the show, YouTube Super Chats you can do, but also on Patreon. You can find the link in the show description for our Patreon channel, Jason Bland Paranormal Soup. $1 a month, $2 a month gives you access to me on the show live. Guys, thanks for joining us tonight with our guest, Dona Masi. Check out her book, The Taking. All right, guys, have a great night. See you next week. Oh, next week's guest, Dr. Heather Lynn. We're going to talk about her newest book, Baphomet Revealed, next Sunday. Always great to have Dr. Heather Lynn on. All right, guys, have a great night. See you then.